The codenamed Switch 2 is like the worst kept secret in gaming right now, with everyone reporting on it except for Nintendo themselves. I'm not going to go too in-depth on leaked specs, expected release window, or hardware designs, but reports say the next Nintendo console is right around the corner, with performance between the range of a PS4 Pro and Xbox Series S. What I really want to cover in this video is my speculation about what might get shown at the eventual console reveal and what the launch titles could be. Mostly so I can look back at this video in a few months and laugh about how wrong I probably am.
Nintendo Switch!
I'm going to focus on 3 different categories. The very likely, meaning almost guaranteed predictions that are pretty easy to guess. The less likely, which are my fun predictions based on pretty much nothing other than my own interests and Nintendo's track record. And the not at all likely. My pie-in-the-sky predictions that I'd love to see happen, but almost certainly won't. I've never understood the phrase pie-in-the-sky, by the way. Where does it come from? Is it from the old cartoons where they'd follow the floating scent trails of a pie, or is it something deeper? Guess I'll never know.
Ah! What kind of pie is this? Peter, it's making me watch.
I think the most obvious prediction for the codenamed Switch 2 is a focus on upscaled Switch 1 games with better performance. Pretty much every rumor out there has said the system will be backwards compatible, so I guarantee they'll come out of the gate highlighting how not only will the system launch with every existing Switch game, but the system will be able to run them at upscaled 4K and 60 frames a second, as long as the games are updated to support it. Then they'll show off improved versions of notoriously rough-performing games like Pokemon and Breath of the Wild, as well as some third parties like Mortal Kombat 1 and the Arkham Collection, which had just terrible launches. But also, Nintendo being Nintendo, I wouldn't be surprised if they still milk the audience with some enhanced ports only on Switch 2, like a Mario Odyssey Deluxe with a new world or two, a 4K overhaul with a little more effort than just upscaling, and probably some quality of life improvements showing off the faster loading I'd imagine the system is capable of. At the very least, it couldn't load any slower. On that note, while I don't think it's a guarantee, another very likely prediction is a day 1 cross-platform release of Metroid Prime 4. I can see them saying the game will come to Switch 1 locked at 720p to hit 60 frames a second and with lower res textures, but you can either buy the Switch 2 version at launch or upgrade your Switch 1 copy later. I predict Nintendo will take the cue from competitors and start charging $70 for all their games this generation also. But then you get the Switch 2 enhanced version with better graphics, higher resolution, and exclusive content, whatever that might be. We don't really know enough about the game yet for me to predict the exclusive content I'm predicting, but I'll throw in a baseless rumor here and say Sylix mode. Play through a unique campaign as Sylix, following his journey to track down Samus since the events of Prime Hunters. Kind of fill in that backstory. Or an exclusive multiplayer mode, akin to Prime 2. That'd be awesome, but doubtful since the launch install base for Switch 2 will be so much lower than the established Switch 1 audience. Why lock away multiplayer on the Switch 2 version? But I'm getting caught up in my own speculations. Let's move on. Honestly don't know what to expect from new launch titles. Most of that prediction will be in the less likely section, but one I can pretty much guarantee is the heavily rumored new Mario Kart game. The Switch 1 technically never got its own Mario Kart. 8 Deluxe topped sales charts throughout the system's entire run and got exclusive content, but the base game did start as a Wii U game. It just found new life on the system people actually owned. And the only other release on Switch was Home Circuit, which I loved, but was a quickly forgotten gimmick game, unfortunately. The Switch also wasn't noticeably more powerful than the Wii U though, so it kinda makes sense they didn't innovate the series there. I see the Switch 2's power boost as a chance to really let loose with a new entry. I already did a video about what I'd want to see from the next game, so I won't go into detail here, just go watch that, but you have to imagine they have a new Mario Kart locked and ready to go for launch, because they know it'll sell systems. Other than that, I think Nintendo will pad out the rest of their launch lineup, showcasing third-party games that wouldn't have been possible on the Switch 1. Probably some slightly downgraded current gen games like the new Assassin's Creed, maybe Dragon Age Vanguard, as well as some yearly sports titles, maybe a reveal that they've partnered to start releasing Call of Duty games again, and then they'll do a showcase of older titles ported with exclusive features, highlighted by, like, Red Dead Redemption 2 with, I don't know, some Nintendo-themed outfits for Arthur Morgan, and, like, amiibo support to unlock custom character scrotums for the horse. Okay, maybe not that one, though they did have a weird fascination with horse scrotum in that game. Just saying. But honestly, do you think they'll even continue amiibo support? Like, maybe they'll just release an NFC portal peripheral for backwards compatibility. But that'd be sad. I like amiibo. Okay, that was probably the longest section because it's pretty easy to predict the obvious. Now, let's get into the less likely, which are things I'd love to see and think have a chance to be revealed, but maybe not for launch. Let's call these launch window predictions, like how they showed off Mario Odyssey at the Switch reveal, but it came out 6 months after launch. Except these might never happen, but we'll see. Starting off, I want to believe we'll see some forgotten franchises revisited. I'm not going to include Donkey Kong here because they already have Donkey Kong Country Returns HD coming in January, so I think even if that's the start of reviving the Country series, we wouldn't see the follow-up right away on Switch 2. People would feel cheated by having just bought the port. Instead, I'm going to dig a little deeper into Nintendo IP. Star Fox and F-Zero. Maybe a joint title, with Star Fox in space dogfights and Captain Falcon on ground race missions, but more likely separate games since they've never specifically connected those universes, though there are hints. But before you say it'd be weird for them to do a new Mario Kart and a new F-Zero that close together, might I direct you to Exhibit A, and B, and C. Not only have the series never been similar enough to cannibalize each other, but I also think they'd go a different direction with a new game, possibly even rebooting it entirely into something that isn't just a racing game. I'd foresee a new F-Zero game being more of an open-world adventure game with the classic race mode on the side in a multiplayer focus. But the main single-player adventure would fully utilize the moveset Falcon has in Smash Bros, as well as maybe beef it up, and get him out of the car doing a variety of missions, but then he can summon a fully customizable, upgradable car to hop in and do race challenges, or just explore the map in between missions. I think of it like Jak 2, where it's pretty evenly split between platforming, combat, and racing. They haven't been able to figure out a new hook for the F-Zero series, so just start over and make it something else. It's a game genre that Nintendo doesn't really have represented yet, while games like Star Wars Outlaws show there's a market for that kind of gameplay loop. I don't have specifics on a new Star Fox game. Honestly, just give me a remake of Star Fox Adventures. I love that game, and some modern quality of life improvements could finally give it the respect it deserves. But mostly just make the space fight missions better. They were the worst part. Just please, please, please don't remake Star Fox 64 again. My other launch window predictions are fairly standard. It kind of depends on what we get at launch. But I wouldn't be surprised by another Mario game, either a sequel to Wonder to cover the 2D side, or the next 3D game if we don't get Odyssey Deluxe at launch. I doubt we're ready for another Zelda game, but I could see a remake fitting in well. Probably Ocarina of Time. Not an HD port of the 3DS version, but an actual remake styled like the Wii U tech demo, for example. Or more likely just a 4K port of Wind Waker or Twilight Princess, since those are still stuck on the Wii U. I'm sure we're also due for another Kirby game. That seems like a safe prediction, but I don't have any strong feelings about anything else first-party wise. Now, time for some pie in the sky. Honestly, I should probably move my F-Zero pitch here because it got pretty pie-filled by the end there, but I really do think a revisit of that series is likely, even if it's not what I pitched. But the ideas here are all things that aren't very likely, at least around launch, but I'd still love to see happen someday. And we're coming in hot with Metroid 6. I know, it seems wild to only have like 4 years between mainline Metroid games, but if they still have Mercury Steam on board with the Dread engine and an idea, I don't see why they couldn't capitalize on the renewed popularity of the series. Look back at the series in its prime on the GameCube and GBA. We had Prime 1 and 2, and Fusion and Zero Mission, all in the span of like 2 years. Let's bring that parity back with Prime 4 and Metroid 6. I can't begin to predict what the sequel would be about, and it'd probably be its own video anyway if I did have an idea, but I had to fit another Metroid reference in this video still. And speaking of contractual obligations for the channel, hear me out. Mega Man is a Nintendo exclusive again. Or timed exclusive at least. Is it Mega Man 12, X9, the revival of Legends 3, or something totally new? I don't know. How about do them all? Just give me something. But I think Nintendo paying for console exclusivity would make headlines and bring attention to the series in a way it's been lacking from all the collections, crossover events, and mobile games we've been getting. I'm picturing a Bayonetta situation where Nintendo funds a new Mega Man game and publishes it, but then maybe lets Capcom port it to other systems after the exclusivity period they paid for. Capcom has been on a trend of revisiting their classic franchises lately, so it's possible they're already making one themselves, but I just don't have faith in their modern catalog outside of guaranteed hits like Monster Hunter, Resident Evil, and the retro collections they've been doing. Get Nintendo involved and make something happen. My boys need this. My final and sadly least likely prediction goes back to Donkey Kong. I know I said a new country game isn't likely this close to the Returns remake, but that doesn't mean a new 3D game can't happen. And surprisingly, I'm actually not thinking about a Donkey Kong 64 remake here. I mean, I'd gladly take it, but no. I'm thinking they capitalize on the success of the Super Mario Bros. Movie, and more specifically its sequel coming, and do a big budget Donkey Kong game set in that universe. Let's explore the Donkey Kong land of the movie universe and make an adventure spanning the many locations, plus others we didn't get to see yet. Would Donkey Kong be voiced by Seth Rogen? Yeah, probably, but there's still a lot of potential for fleshing out that world in a way that's separate from classic DK continuity. Plus, I mean, you could minimize the amount of voice lines, it's not that big of a deal. But bring in that world's Diddy, Dixie, Cranky, and maybe a new Kong, and have a 3D adventure in the style of Donkey Kong 64, but with less tedious collection and more open exploration. Like, have a shared hub world, but with levels designed for each Kong, rather than swapping between them constantly in each area. Something more like Astrobot, where you can make use of their individual abilities to make each level dynamic, but still have a good amount of collectibles catered to that Kong in each level. You could even tie it into the shared universe of that movie's concept and have special levels based on other Mario properties, like one in Dinosaur Land with some Yoshi gimmicks, for example, similar to the Astrobot levels based around other Sony properties. Can you tell I really like Astrobot? So, in conclusion, let's recap my predictions. From the safe bets, to the less likely possibilities, to the totally out there, get hyped potential. What do you think? And what would you predict? Let me know in the comments below. Pretty much all my predictions have just been about utilizing the most powerful Nintendo console so far to do something revolutionary with their classic franchises. Really bring them into the future with more large-scale adventures and genre bending. Nintendo has been taking some risks lately, but it all still feels pretty safe. Are safe risks a thing? Like, they're pushing the envelope, but just by a few inches. Mario Wonder was an amazing evolution of the 2D Mario formula, but it's still just 2D Mario. Echoes of Wisdom finally put Zelda in the lead of a real Zelda game with some unique mechanics, but then played it safe by reusing the cutesy top-down Link's Awakening HD style. I love that style, but it's not new. And then Tears of the Kingdom took 7 years to develop just to get called Breath of the Wild DLC. Do you see the conundrum we're dealing with here? A new console is the perfect time to give both their ongoing and long-forgotten IPs a fresh coat of paint and reimagined gameplay. Will Nintendo actually do it? I mean, look at my most likely predictions. Probably not. But after 8 years of pushing underpowered hardware to its limits, I hope they're ready to switch it up. We did get a fully 3D Kirby game this gen though. That was pretty unique. Instead, I'm gonna dig a little deeper and Instead, I'm going to dig a little deeper into